Moving on, Fauci. So Dr. Fauci has been on trial. He's on trial for how he handled COVID. And I wouldn't really say it's about how he handled COVID. I would rather say how he decided to play the world's largest game of Simon Says with the American people. And this is causing Democrats to lose a war. This is really bad for the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party was the ones pushing all these COVID crap, all this COVID nonsense. And the Republicans like, hey, how about you just leave us alone? And all of the things that were being pushed during COVID, like the lockdowns, the staying home, and the staying away from work, not going to work, all of these things actually increased COVID cases. Because you gotta think about it, everyone's in their house together, just like close encountering. It actually increased the amount of COVID cases than actually helped. It was actually worse for COVID overall. And the geopolitical chess game that is American politics, COVID was the big move. COVID was the big decoy to remove Trump from office. That was the main point of COVID. It was to get Trump out of office, and it was a complete success. It worked very well. Many people who voted Trump initially, I made a video, my second video ever on this channel actually, is called CNN Why People Aren't Voting for Trump, and I talked about it because a lot of people were like, people who supported Trump originally were no longer supporting Trump because of the COVID and how COVID was being handled. And now this is all biting them in the butt. The Democrats are losing credibility when it comes to both Republicans and Democrats because they threw all this COVID stuff. So COVID was the queen on the chessboard. They used the queen, they sacrificed the queen, and they screwed themselves over. Because, yes, they got Trump out of office, just like the queen checked the king, but then the queen gets taken, and now the government has lost all credibility because of this disaster. The government lost all credibility when it comes to this. The science has lost all of their credibility because they decided to lie to its people, fear-mongering, instead of just telling the truth. And now it's very clear to the people that this was just a ploy to get Trump out of office. And now this is why they're going after Trump legally to try to screw up. They're trying to screw up his public image. That's why they're going after him legally. That's why they have the 34 felony accounts that he got charged with. And that's why they have the Jean Carroll case, the rape case. The rape case that the jury admitted that Trump did not rape Jean Carroll, yet they still convicted him with sexual assault anyway. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That just doesn't make a lot of sense. And the jury also made Trump pay defamation. So, doesn't make a lot of sense because the jury literally admitted that Trump didn't rape the girl, which is what Trump has been saying for the last, I don't know, however many years. And he's getting sued for defamation, and he has to pay the defamation suit, which just doesn't make a lot of sense. The jury said the same thing Trump said, and Trump has to pay defamation for it. USA Today posts that the COVID guidelines caused millions to suffer. Now Fauci admits that there was no science behind it. In his testimony in the House Oversight of Accountability Committee on Monday, Dr. Fauci, former director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease and former chief medical advisor for President Donald Trump, said the 6-foot social distancing rule, which the CDC originally recommended, had not been backed up by a clinical trial. This is despite constant claims that COVID-19 protocols were based on science. So if you remember, the government was literally saying, hey, listen to us, follow the science. And now we're learning that the things that they were telling us to do are no longer scientific. If you were paying attention during the pandemic, you would also have known that this was all a lie. If you just had basic common sense, you would have known that the 6-foot rule was just stupid. And it was just nonsense. Anyone with common sense could have figured that one out. I mean, I'm not the smartest guy on the planet, and I figured that one out at 16. I knew that was all a lie. And, some people are treating this like it's some huge twist, like it's a Freeman McFadden book, or as if it's like the ending of the first Saw movie, or like 7 or something. Like what's in the box? Fake news, that's what's in the box. But remember when Democrats would call Republicans anti-science? You don't even believe in science. You're not following science. Get vaccinated, dude. Put your clown makeup on, wear your mask, your little red nose, your rainbow puffy hair, and put your thumb in your butt and follow the science. If you don't do that, you're not following the science. If you don't play Simon Says with the government, then you're not following the science. Well, now look who was right. It was us. All along, it was us. All along, we're the smart ones that question things. Now, I want to give this advice to all people. If something doesn't make sense, it probably doesn't make sense. If you're a pretty smart person and you look into something, let's just say something like this, and you're looking into it, and you're like, how does this make sense? And you've looked into the evidence, and you still can't make sense of it, and you're listening to the professionals, and you still can't make sense of it, it's probably because it doesn't make sense. And I want you, because this is going to benefit your safety in the future, if something doesn't make sense, don't let it make sense. Don't let people walk over you because they're the government, because they're science. If you really think the government won't do something, oh yes, they will. The government literally faked a vampire attack to take over a country. Don't tell me the U.S. government won't do something. Don't. That's a real thing, by the way. Okay, that's a Cold War operation. But besides that, what's even crazier to me is, so I was in school when COVID happened. I wasn't in school for 2020 because I went to a private school, and our school basically just got shut down. We didn't have anything. But from 2021, or from 2020 to 2021, that school year, when I graduated, we had all these mask nonsense and the social distancing and you won't believe it. So one of the CDC guidelines at the time was during gym class, since you're running around and exercising, if you're exercising and running around, you actually had a social distance 12 feet because you're breathing harder and exhaling harder. And, the super air is pushing COVID even harder. You got super air. You're breathing super air, and the super air pushes COVID even further. I can't believe people are actually falling for this stuff. Dude, we're going to look back. People are going to look back on this in 40 years and go, why did you fall for that? You know how you look at your grandparents and be like, why do you smoke cigarettes? It's bad. And they tell you back when they first came out, we didn't know they were bad. The science said they were good for you. And then you look at them and go, well, duh, obviously it's not good for you. This is the same stuff. You ever look at people who go I wouldn't have owned a slave back in the 1800s? Oh, yes, you would. Yes, you would. If you put on the mask, yes, you would. Oh, I wouldn't have joined the Nazis in World War II. Oh, I would have stood up and told them they were bad people. Sure you would, buddy. Sure you would. I believe you. Don't worry, I believe you. So these So these disclosures are damning and maddening for all of us who structured our lives around these rules for years. As a result, millions have suffered needlessly. On Monday, Fauci was also asked to clarify comments during the 2-day congressional testimony when he gave he was supposed to clarify his comments during the 2-day congressional testimony he gave in January. The transcript of the testimony was recently released, and he specifically mentioned on Monday to question about the 6-foot rule. And I quote, "It had little to do with me, since I didn't make the recommendation, and my saying there was no science behind it meant there was no clinical trial behind it." So basically what he's saying is there was no science to back it up. That's another way to say we screwed up and there was no science behind it, but it's just a nicer, funner way to say it. So don't you think it's a little irresponsible that you couldn't even take the time to conduct the basic scientific method that we learned in 7th grade? You pushed these commands on us. You made us do these things. And you couldn't even apply the scientific method to see maybe if it worked. You know how dangerous that is? What if, by some tragedy, the distance was actually 10 feet, and COVID actually traveled 10 feet, and you're telling people to do 6 feet? You're putting a ton of people at risk. So like I mentioned earlier, if it doesn't make a lot of sense, don't listen to it, because this is life or death stuff here. What if the CDC handled something more seriously like they did COVID? Could you imagine the repercussions of that? Like, that would be disastrous. And I was critical of the CDC for this as well. Okay, I've said in the past multiple times that the CDC should just admit when they don't know, because that's more helpful. Okay, when they're just doing logical parkour and just going from thing to thing to thing, like they're Ninja Turtles running on rooftops. When you're doing logical parkour like that, you kind of start losing people's trust, because it seems like you just don't know what you're talking about. Like, imagine if in one paragraph I go from I like this to I don't like that to I don't mind it. That, I can't think of the puppet show, but that Sesame Street puppet show where the two old guys that that would always things are great and then hate it the next second. Can't think of their names, but it's literally that. The CDC are literally those puppets. On Monday, Fauci did concede that COVID-19 preventable measures may have gone a little too far and led to harmful outcomes. Oh, really now? Harmful outcomes, you say? You don't say. He said it is very, very clear that public health officials in the future should consider the potential collateral negative effects. Oh, really now? They should? In the future, maybe? Oh, that's totally not what the Republicans have been saying for the last 3 or 4 years now. No. This is our original thought just coming in now. Breaking news, everybody. Of the controversial ideas like requiring masks, and asked, how can we do better next time? He also admitted in the January interview that there was little science backed requiring children to wear masks in public schools for almost 2 years. You don't say. Want to know why? Because we were saying that for the longest time. Because we're like, hey, wait a minute. You just said that kids were pretty immune to COVID. Why are we making them wear masks? And they're just like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. Quote, do you recall reviewing any studies or data supporting masks for children? A staffer asked Fauci, and Fauci quoted, I might have, he answered, but I don't recall specifically what I did. I might have. He's not even sure if he reviewed anything. But he was pushing all this stuff. He had no idea what he's talking about, but he's pushing it. He's pushing all these ideas, but he has no idea what he's talking about. Okay? That's like if I was to push ideas on how cars should be manufactured. I don't know anything about cars. I could change my oil, change my air conditioning, I could fix the light bulb in the front of the car. But besides that, I can't do much. I could do the 6 or 7 basic things, changing your tires and stuff. But I don't know anything about the engine. You want me to build your engine or fix something or combusts or whatever? I don't know anything. If you're a car guy, you hear me right now talk about cars is probably making you cringe because of how little I know about them. But for some reason, when Dr. Fauci, person with the title doctor, says something, we just blindly obey. You put the mask on, your clown makeup, your wig, and the thumb in your butt. Moral of the story, we should be sheep for Jesus and not sheep for the worldly governors. And there's a passage in Matthew 25. It's talking about sheep and goats. Now, sheep are Christians that are going to heaven, and goats are Christians that will go to hell. Which, yes, that's a thing. And basically, Jesus is saying that the sheep who followed God's command, followed Jesus' commands, the sheep are the Christians they've surrendered their intelligence and their will to God. That's what sheep are. Sheep of Jesus are people who surrender their will, similar to how these sheep surrendered their will to the worldly governors. Put on the mask and the thumb in your butt. Whereas the goats are the Christians who didn't always obey God's command. They sometimes they were just I don't feel like doing that right now. And, it's church, but it's kind of hard. And the new Fortnite update's out. And, that's the difference between the sheep and the goats. So moral of the story, we need to be sheep for Christ and not for the government. Thank you for watching all the way through the end. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, you can tune into my full show to watch all of my episodes early. And as always, God bless.